Hey folks, Chris Holden here. I'm doing a video tutorial. Hopefully the quality of this can kind of work out. Basically, this is a 2048 texture. This was a piece of placeholder art that I put together from a few photos of stone and whatnot. It's going to be a stone texture, the stone base in the end. And it's what I'm going to be using as a reference and what I'll be sampling colors from. Let me see here. Here's my first result of the hand-painted version, what our final result will probably end up looking a little bit like. So yeah, I'm just going to be hand-painting some semi-realistic stone. It's not really like something you're going to see in WoW or whatever. But yeah, first of all, I want to talk about making a Photoshop brush. And I'm going to use this original placeholder texture I made and turn it into a brush. So I'm going to cover those steps now. I'm getting everything set up on this image. Sorry, I got to flatten some layers and whatnot. Okay, first thing I do, desaturate it. Control-Shift-U. Then I go make some level adjustments. Control-L. This is basically just getting all the lighting information that's actually in the image, so that you have 0 is your darkest is 000 black, and your brightest is white, 255. Next, I make a solid color layer on top of that and use a really soft brush in the mask of this white. And I'll use black to paint this in. Here, let me adjust my opacity real quick. This is just a default soft brush that's I gotta get centered. Default soft brush that comes with Photoshop. And yeah, just click it out a few times here to make the mask give you a transition of nothing, or as the white edge is, and then all the interior is all your detail that will look like the stone. From there, you just simply, I'm going to scroll this down so you can kind of see. Oh man, I think the pixelation might be a problem, and I might have to do this video different. But edit, define brush preset, and go for it. You name your file, your new brush that is. Hit OK, and there it is. You're using it. Let me make a new image here, and I'm just going to click around a few times real quick and show you the result. If I can learn how to Photoshop. Okay, that's 1 click, 2 click, 3 clicks. This is like black. Here's a different color. Kind of muddies up here, but you get the idea. It's a pretty simple brush. I suggest making brushes all the time, because I'm going to use a lot of different brushes as I paint. And actually, I'm starting now, so I'm starting with just a kind of a neutral color of this background. Adjusting some opacity here, just really clicking around a few times, not really getting too crazy with it here. I have 2 colors selected, my foreground and background color. One's kind of a dark red, the other's kind of a very low saturation green and pretty much gray. And I'm just going to go, after laying down a few base clicks, I'm just going to go and pick some different brushes and just click around and see what I get. Because the idea here is I'm just going for a stone look, so there'll be things like, I don't know, little bumps, cracks, rust. Not rust. Why would I put rust in stone? I'm excited about I want to do one of these for the metal texture that I did as well, so I'm thinking about that. But anyway, what I'm doing here is I just clicking around a little bit. That got a little too intense. Undo. Just clicking around, and I have a different foreground and background color, and I switch between those. I switch between the actual brush size, the opacity, quite a bit. Almost with every click, I try to get dynamic with it. There's a bunch of hotkeys you can set up your own, so you can switch really fast. But yeah, so I'm just going to click around here for a bit. Again, making brushes, it's going to help you out a lot to make a bunch of brushes. Uh, Download brushes. If you just Google Photoshop brushes, there's so many you can download. Be sure to check if they have some sort of copyright or whatever. But most of them are free because brushes are super easy to make. And you can do some really interesting things with brushes too. I worked with a guy that had this. It would basically look like almost like a parallelogram kind of shape, or just a bent piece of rope. But when he painted it out in Photoshop, it would paint out a long strip of rope. It was a really nice brush. So yeah, I'm still just clicking around. I got some different cracks and splatter kind of shapes, like things to mimic light amounts of cracks or lichen. Anything you might naturally see on a stone. But I'm going really light here, really low contrast. So once I get done kind of clicking around here, I'm gonna use levels to really intensify this a lot. Okay, here I actually picked a much smaller brush. You might have seen the other brushes being very large. This one's smaller because I need to get some small details in here. I'm actually looking at a 2048 texture, so I'm adding a lot of little. It's almost like noise, but speckling. Just little indentions, graininess. All right, here's that level adjustment I was talking about. As you can see, the color range is very, very limited. So I want to intensify that and start working from that. So I'm gonna get a little bit more intense. I don't know. Just kind of play around with it and just see what you like. But make sure to use that color range. Try to fill it up. And this looks pretty good. It's a little more brown and saturated than I want for this stone. So one of the next things I'll do is I'm actually making a new layer here, and I'm using a mask, and I just inverted the mask so it's making no effect, no desaturation at all, just a saturation adjustment layer. And now I'm painting in the mask of the saturation adjustment layer with a brush that just erases it or brings it back. I'm basically, again, switching between the foreground and background color using X, and those colors being black and white, which is painting into the mask, so the intensity of the desaturation is coming in. And I'm just going to do this really quick and flatten this so I can paint over that again. And, right now I'm kind of, it's almost like I'm painting stripes, but I'm going for like a striation. A lot of times with stone, you'll see it creates patterns based on how the stone was created, or there's different types of stone, obviously, different indigenous rocks to your area. But this one's just kind of gonna be like dark brick stone that what I'll probably use for it I'll probably make some high detail meshes to bake out normal maps, and I'll apply these to those high detail meshes and bake out the diffuse, which will yield a pretty good result. And I'll try to do some tutorials on that as well, but we'll see. Anyway, that was just some saturation adjustment now. So there's a pretty even mix now between the colors. You don't want to desaturate it all the way. Well, obviously it depends on what you're doing. Actually, I'm zooming in here real quick to show you. Actually, I think this is the point where I start painting in some. I need to paint in some small details probably. Anyway, what I was saying is, it doesn't matter what project you're doing. There's always going to be a certain level of colors that you're going to need in there, and don't overly desaturate your textures. Let the colors flow. Alright, so I've flattened that and I'm painting in some smaller details. It's going to be a little harder to see, obviously, due to video compression and whatnot. But I'm trying to do some small splatters. I'm switching between a bright and a dark version of this. I'm literally just kind of moving around trying to find accented edges, and I'm going to undo that because that didn't work out at all. Basically accenting edges, just moving and clicking it, making adjustments to size and opacity, and obviously the bright and the dark foreground background colors I have selected. Again, this is just doing the striations. It almost looks wrong because it's an obvious brush line, but that'll be cleaned up. This is a little bit of dodge and burn to kind of neutralize some things I didn't think looked that right. Again, I don't really have a real system or a plan, and I didn't even save this. I got this far, I haven't saved it, so I'm going to save it now. When it comes to stuff like this, I just like to just kind of go at it randomly, just click around and see what happens. If it doesn't work out, undo it. Right now, I'm going to tile it because it doesn't tile yet. I've just been painting randomly. So what I'm going to do is Control A to select it all. Control Shift C to copy merge to get all my layers, even though I just flattened it. It's good to know. Control C to get it regular. Then I'm offsetting that by 1024 because it's a 2048 texture. I make a mask for this new layer and just paint out the mask in the center so it gets rid of the tiling lines there, and you pretty much have a tiling texture now. I'm just kind of going in here and again just creating some randomness to get rid of the if you do that technique where you use the mask and you delete the center line like I did there, you might end up with a diamond-esque pattern. So I like to mix it up by painting outside of that. So now here's what I did. I selected everything, made it a new layer, and adjusting the levels and just so it's intense. And I'm gonna just save this in the background because I'm gonna use this later. It's just an intensification of the values. But I'm gonna duplicate that right quick and emboss it. And I'm embossing it at like 1 pixel, the lowest settings possible. And you can play around with this and see what you like. I'm just gonna go all the way 500 and just adjust the level. The layer. What I'm going to do next is just soft light that on top of everything and turn it way down. Like way down. I don't want this emboss to really even be noticeable at the lowest level. I just want to add a subtle amount of consistent lighting over the material. It's something that you might not want to do. It might not be right for your project, but it really kind of helps sell the realism of this material. So now I'm going back to this intensified black and white here, and I'm just gonna play around here with the layers, see what it looks like. Nice. Setting it to darken and then adjusting that down, and that seems to kind of intensify these little stained areas. So I'm gonna go with that. It's pretty cool. I'm gonna duplicate that and see if I can't get anything out of the highlights. I'm gonna try and actually offset them and just get some random values. So we can just see what happens. So I'm just making adjustments here with opacity. It's set to a lightened layer now, and I'm just playing around with it, seeing if it does anything I like. I kind of like this. This is okay. It has a nice effect. So yeah, that's it. There's the stone. I'm gonna call it good. So yeah, thanks for checking it out.